I was paralyzed in an ICU bed when I heard my own daughter say, "Do it," and the hospital video later proved whose hand went to my breathing tube. The alarms weren't the only thing screaming Nurse Keisha's notes, Dr. Rosen's incident report, all of it lined up like a row of headlights. And when I finally got into my Wells Fargo account weeks later, the numbers told the same story. About 85 grand collapsed towards 17, with casino transfers and designer charges sprinkled in like confetti. My mouth wouldn't move, but my stomach rolled so hard I thought I'd vomit around plastic. My fingers wouldn't twitch, yet my whole body was sweating like I was running uphill. They thought I couldn't hear. Air is a privilege. 2 weeks earlier, the first thing I remember is the sound, not voices machines, that steady metronome beep that makes you feel like you're being measured, like your life is a receipt printing out in real time. My eyes were open. I know that for a fact because I could see the corner of the ceiling tile that had a little brown water stain shaped like Texas. I stared at it like it was the only thing tethering me to Earth. I tried to blink. Nothing. Tried to swallow. Nothing. The ventilator did the work for me. Push, pause, pull, like somebody else owned my lungs. And then I heard shoes. 2 sets, rubber soles. The kind that squeak on hospital floor wax. A nurse had just been in Keisha ID, learn her name later checking lines and murmuring, "Okay, Miss Delaney, you're doing fine." She said it like she was talking to a skittish dog, gentle, careful. These new footsteps didn't have that calm. The curtain rustled, the air changed. I smelled Derek's cologne before I heard his voice. Too sweet. Too loud for a room that already had enough chemicals in it. Marissa leaned close, and I felt the warmth of her breath near my ear. "Mom?" she whispered. "Can you hear me?" My heart jumped so hard it actually hurt. I wanted to scream, "Yes, I can hear you. I can hear everything. I am right here." But my face stayed slack, and the tube kept hissing like a snake. Derek made a little sound, half laugh, half scoff. "She can't. Look at her. She's out." He said it the way somebody talks about a broken appliance, not a person, not his wife's mother. Cold truth. That's when fear moved in, like it paid rent. Marissa's voice got shaky. They said she might wake up. They said, "Derek cut her off fast, babe. They say that to everybody." You know what else they said? He leaned in close enough that I could feel the vibration of his words through the side rail. $8,000 a day. 8,000 a day. He said it like it was my fault for being alive, like I'd chosen this, like I'd scheduled a stroke on my calendar just to inconvenience them. Marissa breathed out, and it sounded like she was trying not to cry. We don't have that. Derek's voice got softer. That's the scary part. Then we make a decision. A peaceful decision. Nobody has to suffer. Doctors do it all the time. I couldn't turn my head, but inside my skull I was thrashing. Peaceful, decision, suffer. Those words don't belong next to my name. Marissa did this tiny little sob, and it punched me right in the gut, because a part of me still wanted to believe this was just panic, just stress, just my kid falling apart. Then Derek said, almost casually, she wouldn't even know. I swear, if rage could move a limb, I would snap the bed rail clean off. Marissa didn't answer right away. The monitor beeped on, steady, like it was counting down. And I waited, holding on to that stupid water stain on the ceiling like it could protect me. Finally, Marissa whispered, I don't want her to hurt. Derek's tone turned impatient. Then stop the machine. That's it. One pull, quick. My skin prickled under the paper-thin hospital blanket. I could feel my own heartbeat in my ears. This is the moment where you decide what you do if you were me. Because I am telling you it's not theoretical when you're the one stuck inside your own body. Comment below, if you heard that in an ICU, would you forgive your child? Marissa moved. I knew she moved because the air shifted and the mattress changed under me, like somebody leaned in across my torso. I heard her bracelet clink against the bed, rail 3 tiny metallic taps. Familiar. My stomach dropped. Derek murmured, "There you go." And then a hand touched the tubing. It wasn't rough at first. It was almost careful, like someone didn't want to leave fingerprints. Funny, right? The second you decide to do something evil, you start worrying about evidence. The tube shifted, a fraction, enough. That's the thing nobody tells you about ventilators. You don't get a dramatic struggle. You don't get a movie moment where you thrash and rip it out yourself. You just stop getting air. It wasn't pain at first. It was this immediate animal panic. My chest tried to rise on its own and couldn't. My brain lit up like a fire alarm. Air stopped. Alarms screamed. The machine started shrieking, and a red light flashed. The monitor went nuts, numbers jumping. The room filled with that urgent electronic howl that means, "Hey, somebody's dying in here." Marissa gasped. Derek hissed, "Act normal. Act normal." While I am suffocating, while my body is trapped, while my daughter is standing there like she's watching a bill get paid. The curtain flew open so hard it snapped on the track. Keisha's voice shot through the room, sharp as a whip. "What happened?" I couldn't answer. I couldn't even blink. I just lay there, drowning in dry air. Dr. Rosen rushed in behind her hair pulled back, eyes focused, that calm you only get from seeing too much. "Respiratory distress," she said, already gloved up. "Get RT. Now." Derek started talking fast. It slipped, she moved, she. Dr. Rosen didn't even look at him, not at first. She looked at the tube and the connections and my face. Then she looked at Marissa. Keisha leaned over me, hands working. "Stay with us, Miss Delaney. You're okay. You're okay." Her voice was a rope, and I grabbed it with everything I had. I felt fingers secure the line. I felt the pressure shift. The ventilator hissed again, push, pause, pull like the world restarted. My eyes burned, and still I couldn't close them. Tears gathered anyway, hot and useless. Marissa backed toward the wall. Derek hovered like he wanted to be invisible. Dr. Rosen finally turned to him, and her voice dropped. "These tubes don't just come loose." He tried to smile. It was a terrible smile, the kind that says, "Please buy this story." Keisha's gaze flicked between them and me. Then she said, very clearly, I saw a hand on the line. Silence cracked open in the room. Derek's jaw tightened. Marissa's face went pale. And I wanted to memorize that moment, the exact shade of fear on my daughter's skin, because for the first time, I knew I wasn't crazy. I wasn't imagining it. People saw. Dr. Rosen spoke like she was stacking bricks. "I am filing an incident report, and I want security to pull the camera outside this room." Derek's head snapped up. "Camera?" "Hospital hallway camera," she said, still not raising her voice. "Well, see who was here and when." The room went very still, except for the machines. I couldn't move, but I felt something shift anyway. Because once a doctor says the word security, the story changes. It stops being family stress. It starts being proof. Derek tried again. "Dr. Simon, this is a misunderstanding." Keisha cut him off, and I'll never forget it. She didn't yell. She didn't posture. She just sounded tired. "Sir, step back." And Derek did. He stepped back like had been ordered by somebody who actually mattered. Love turned into a cost calculation. My life was a line item. Time in the ICU doesn't feel like time. It feels like fog with bright spots of terror. Days blended together in IV drips, blood pressure cuffs, squeezing my arm until it ached, physical therapists lifting my wrist like it belonged to someone else. Marissa came every day after that. She held my hand. She dabbed at my lips with a sponge stick. She played worship music on low volume like she was trying to scrub the room clean. Sometimes she'd lean in and whisper, "Mom, you scared me." And I would stare back, trapped behind my own eyes, trying to figure out who she was talking to, me or herself. Derek still showed up too. He'd bring coffee, chat with nurses like he was everybody's buddy, laugh in that too loud way. Head talk about insurance and bills and how we're doing everything we can. Caretaking can be a costume. A smile is not a receipt. On the 7th day, something small happened that scared me almost more than the alarms. Marissa leaned in close, like she always did. But this time, I managed the tiniest twitch around my eyes. Not a full blink, more like a crack in the door. Her gaze locked onto mine, and it was like watching someone get caught shoplifting. Her mouth parted, her breathing stopped for one beat. And for the briefest second, her face said, "Oh no." Then she recovered fast, stroking my hair, voice too sweet. "Hi, Mom, you're doing so good." But her hand was shaking. She knew I was in there. And the sick part? I think that made me more dangerous to them than the stroke ever did. A couple days later, Dr. Rosen stood at the foot of my bed with a tablet, talking to the respiratory therapist. I couldn't see the screen, but I heard her say, "Make sure the footage request is documented." Footage, request, documented. I held on to those words like a life raft. Because if they had it on camera, they had the hallway angle, the timestamps, the comings and goings then. I wasn't just a helpless patient with a confused brain. I was a witness. And if there was one thing Derek couldn't stand, it was a witness. The discharge meeting happened in a bland little room with a whiteboard on the wall and a stale box of tissues. They talked about home health, physical therapy, medications, follow-up appointments. Marissa nodded like the perfect daughter. Derek did most of the talking about logistics. He kept saying like he was the captain of my life now. Well, handle her meds. Well, handle her appointments. Well, handle her bills. He kept saying it, and each time, my stomach tightened. Because I knew what handle really meant. Control is quiet. It wears a nice face. When they wheeled me out, Sacramento looked bright through the hospital door, stew bright. I wanted to feel relief. I wanted to feel lucky. Instead, I felt like I was being transported out of the only place with witnesses. Marissa squeezed my hand in the car. Her voice was light, forced. "We're going to get you stronger at home, you'll see." Derek pulled the Honda CR-V out of the hospital lot like he was late for something fun. I stared out the window at the passing streets and thought about that hallway camera. I prayed it hadn't been overwritten. I prayed someone had saved it. Because I was going home with the two people who had already tried to take my breath. And as the car turned toward my neighborhood, I watched the hospital disappear behind us and the rear-view mirror smaller and smaller until it was just a glint of glass. Then my phone buzzed in Marissa's purse, not mine, and I realized something else. I didn't even have my own lifeline anymore. The last thing I saw before we pulled into my driveway was Derek's knuckles white on the steering wheel, and Marissa staring straight ahead like she couldn't bear to look at me. And in my head, the monitor's shriek from that night replayed, loud as thunder. Because I knew this wasn't over. Not even close. The minute Derek wheeled me through my own front door in East Sacramento, Marissa slid her hand into my purse and quietly took my iPhone 11 like it was a loose button she didn't want rattling around. I saw it happen. I couldn't stop it. I couldn't even clear my throat. I just watched her tuck it away, eyes flicking up to mine for half a second, like she was checking if I'd noticed. I noticed everything. My house smelled like lemon cleaner and something fried. That's how you know someone's been taking care of your place without asking you. It didn't smell like me. It smelled like performance. Derek and Marissa acted like they were moving a piece of furniture, not a person. He kept chirping, "Easy, easy, we got you," while steering my wheelchair into the living room like he'd done it 100 times. Marissa was already talking about where we should put my meds, where we should set up a little bed rail, where we could put a baby monitor just in case. A baby monitor. For me. My house didn't feel like mine. Not even close. The first mini shock came fast. My mail tray by the door, the one I've used for 20 years, was gone. In its place was a clean little basket with a lid, like you'd put potpourri in it. Marissa saw me staring and said, all breezy, "Oh, I moved your mail." It was cluttering the entry. Cluttering, like it's junk, like it isn't my bills, my bank statements, my life. Then she said, "It's safer this way." Safer for who? Derek wandered into my kitchen like he owned it, opened my fridge, and whistled. "You weren't eating half this stuff anyway," he said, then looked over his shoulder and added, "We'll keep it simple. Less confusion." Less confusion. That was going to be their favorite phrase. Any question I had, any look I gave, any tiny flinch of my fingers, they could call it confusion and move on. Marissa started laying out pill bottles on my coffee table like poker chips. She didn't ask what I wanted. She didn't even tell me what they were. She just talked over me to Derek. "She needs these at 8, noon and 8. We'll keep it strict." Strict, like I am, a teenager, grounded for breaking curfew. And then came the second mini shock. Derek leaned down and unplugged my landline. Not the cordless handset, the base, the whole thing. "What?" Marissa said, like she hadn't noticed him do it. Derek didn't even pretend. "Scam callers," he said. "They prey on seniors. We can't have that." I wanted to laugh, not because it was funny, because the nerve of it was so big it almost had to be a joke. He was the scam caller. Gone was my phone. Gone was my mail. Gone was my ability to call for help. And in the middle of it all, they kept speaking in this syrupy tone, like I should be grateful. Kindness can be a muzzle. Control doesn't need to shout. A home health nurse came by the next morning, sweet older lady named Denise, the kind who calls you on without thinking. She did the normal check-ins, blood pressure, oxygen, asked about pain, asked about appetite. Marissa hovered behind her like a manager watching an employee. Denise asked, "Do you feel safe at home?" Marissa laughed too loudly. "Of course she does." Denise glanced at me, waiting. I tried so hard. I stared at Denise with everything I had, trying to make my eyes say, "No, no, no," and my eyelids gave the smallest tremor. Denise paused, just a beat, like she caught it. Marissa stepped forward, touching my shoulder. "She's tired," she said, firm now. "She's been through a lot." Denise nodded, but she kept looking at me an extra second longer than she needed to. That tiny second was a gift. As soon as the nurse left, Derek's tone shifted. Not loud, just colder. "No more visitors without us here," he said to Marissa, like he was setting rules for a dog. Marissa nodded, like that was normal. Then he turned to me and smiled. "We're just protecting you, Fran." Protecting. Sure. By afternoon, Marissa was in my bedroom, rummaging through my dresser. She pulled out my checkbook, me Wells Fargo checkbook, and set it on the bed like shed-found contraband. "Mom, I am gonna need to handle this stuff," she said. "Bills, insurance, all of it." Handle. There it was again. She held up a form shed printed big, bold header. Lots of tiny text and said, "It's a power of attorney. It's standard. Everybody does it." My mouth stayed slack, but inside my head I was screaming, "No, no, absolutely not." Derek appeared in the doorway like he'd been waiting for his cue. "It'll make things smoother," he said. Voice gentle, eyes not gentle at all. "No stress. We'll take care of everything." Smooth. Like my life was a wrinkled shirt, and they were doing me a favor by pressing it flat. I couldn't sign. I couldn't even hold a pen. Marissa took my limp hand and started trying to wrap my fingers around one like she was guiding a toddler. That's when I felt something else under my palm, a bruise, tender and deep, from the IV site in the hospital. Pain spiked, and my hand jerked just a fraction. Marissa froze. Derek's eyes narrowed. And I realized, right then, that they were watching for movement the way a burglar watches for a porch light. Any sign I was in there changed the whole plan. Derek leaned closer and said, almost pleasantly, "Don't fight us, Fran. You'll only make this harder." My skin went cold. I'm going to tell you something that still embarrasses me. I was ashamed. Like I was the problem, like my existence was causing trouble. That's what gaslighting doesn't, makes you apologize for breathing. But then, that night, I got my first real piece of proof. Not a feeling, not a look. Proof I could hold. It came out of my own trash. Marissa took the kitchen bag out around 9, chatting on her iPhone 14 Pro while she did it. Derek had the TV too loud, pretending not to listen. I was parked in my wheelchair by the hallway, body heavy, brain lit up. When Marissa came back in, she forgot something. Napkins. Maybeen left the back door cracked for a second. That crack was my opening. I am not going to pretend I sprang into action. I didn't. I inched. I scooted the chair forward with one stubborn foot, the rubber wheel squeaking on tile. My heart was pounding like I was committing a crime. Outside, the night air smelled like wet grass and car exhaust. Sacramento spring. Cool, but not cold. The trash can lid was half open. I leaned as far as I could and hooked the edge with my fingers. My arm barely worked, but adrenaline is a weird fuel. The bag inside was new, clean, like they just switched it. I didn't go digging like a raccoon. I didn't have the strength. I just pinched what I could reach and pulled. A handful of paper came out crumpled fast food wrappers, a glossy tag, and a long, narrow receipt, folded like someone had tried to hide it. I smoothed it on my lap under the porch light. It was a Nordstrom receipt. Not groceries, not a pharmacy, Nordstrom. Women's shoes, 2 pairs. A men's watch, and the kicker paid with my Chase Visa. My backup card, the one I barely used, the one that should have been in my wallet. My throat tightened so hard it felt like the ventilator all over again. I stared at the total and tried to make my brain do math through the fog. It was over $1, $200, and the date was 2 days after my stroke. 2 days after my stroke, they were buying watches. My hands shook so much the paper rattled. Then I saw another line item stapled behind it, like an extra tail, a cash advance slip, not even trying to be subtle. Casino Cage was printed right there, like a slap. I sat there under my own porch light with casino paper in my lap, and for the first time since the hospital, something solid snapped into place. This wasn't panic. This wasn't grief. This was a plan. They weren't handling my bills. They were harvesting my life. I shoved the receipt into the pocket of my robe like it was contraband and backed my chair inside as quietly as I could. My heart was racing, but my useless face had to stay calm. Because if they realized I'd gotten proof, they'd tighten the cage. The next morning, I tried something risky. I watched Marissa set her phone down on the counter while she made coffee, then walk away to grab laundry. Her iPhone was right there, face up, notifications lighting it. I couldn't type, could barely tap, but I could read. A Wells Fargo alert popped across her screen. Withdrawal posted. My account, on her phone. My vision narrowed like a tunnel. I stared so hard my eyes burned. Shed linked my bank alerts to her phone. So yeah, they didn't take my mail because it was clutter. They took it because they didn't want me seeing what they were doing. Marissa came back in, saw my gaze, and snatched the phone like it was hot. Sorry, she said too fast. It's just easier for me to keep track. Easier? Sure. I kept my face blank, but inside I was filing it away. Wells Fargo alerts. On her device. That meant she had access. My next move had to be quiet. That afternoon, while Marissa ran out for prescriptions in the Honda CR-V and Derek sat on the couch scrolling his Samsung like he was bored, I got another gift. Derek left his wallet on the counter. And not just his wallet, my wallet was tucked under it. My wallet. I couldn't open it well, but I could see the edge of my driver's license and the slot where my Chase Visa should have been. Empty. Had taken it out, kept it, used it. My body went hot with anger, then cold with fear, because stealing from you is one thing. Stealing while you're helpless and calling it care, that's another level. I rolled my chair back toward the hallway closet, acting like I was just drifting. In that closet, behind the old board games and winter scarves, was a little drawer unit I'd forgotten about until my brain started grasping for options. In the bottom drawer was my old iPad mini, the one I used to play stupid word games on during insomnia spells. I hadn't touched it in years. I'd forgotten it existed. Apparently, so had they. My fingers fumbled the drawer open, and the iPad was there, cold and dusty. I slid it onto my lap, turned it on, and almost cried when the screen lit up. It asked for a passcode. Of course it did. I stared at it, heart hammering, and then, thank God for old habits-me muscle memory, did something my body couldn't. 4 digits. My anniversary. Tap, 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 tap. Unlocked. I sat there in my hallway closet like a kid hiding from a storm, holding that little glowing screen like it was a flare gun. And then came the mini twist that made my stomach drop. The iPad still had my email logged in. Not because I was brilliant, because past me was lazy and didn't log out. My inbox loaded slowly, and there they were, bank notifications I hadn't seen in weeks. Wells Fargo, Chase, password change attempts, alerts, a whole trail I'd been cut off from. One email subject line punched me right in the face. Your mailing address has been updated. Updated. By who? I opened it, and the details were right there. My Wells Fargo address had been changed to a P.O. box. Not my house. A P.O. box. And the confirmation email had been sent to Marissa's email address as the secondary contact. I sat there with tears in my eyes, not blinking, not breathing right, thinking they didn't just take my mail, they rerouted my entire life. Cold, clean, and quiet. Then another email came in on Apple notification. A new device signed into your Apple ID. A new device. My account. On somebody else's phone. My hands started shaking again, and I had to clamp the iPad against my stomach to steady it. From the living room, Derek called out, "Fran, you good?" My blood froze. Had noticed I was gone. I shoved the iPad under a pile of scarves and rolled out, forcing myself to look normal, to look blank, to look like I was still just a body they could manage. Derek was standing now, not sitting. That's how you know. His posture was different, alert. I couldn't speak. I just stared. He walked closer, eyes scanning me like he was checking for stolen goods. Marissa said, "You've been moving more," he said lightly. "That true?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. He leaned down, voice low enough it felt like a secret. "Don't start getting ideas, Fran." Then he smiled again, that same terrible smile. "We're doing a lot for you." In my head, I said, "You tried to kill me." But I kept my face still. That evening, Marissa came home with a plastic pharmacy bag and a fake tired smile. She kissed my forehead like I was a child and said, "Guess what? I got your meds organized. We're going to get you back." Like she wasn't the reason I was fighting for my life. She set the bag down, and I saw a corner of paper sticking out, not a prescription sheet, a folded letter. I waited until she walked away, then I lifted the edge with my fingertips and peeked. It was from Wells Fargo, addressed to the P.O. box. My throat closed. Before I could process it, Derek's voice floated from the kitchen, too casual. "Hey, babe," he said. "She's waking up. We need to get those papers signed tonight." My entire body went rigid. Marissa answered, softer, "I know." And then Derek added, like he was talking about taking out the trash, "If she won't cooperate, we'll have to make her." I heard a drawer open. I heard paper rustle. I heard footsteps coming toward me. And I knew, with that iPad hidden in the closet and those receipts in my robe pocket, ID crossed an invisible line. Derek came around the corner with a clipboard and a pen like he was a nurse finishing a shift, not a grown man trying to take my name off my own life. He set the papers on my lap, smoothing them flat with both hands. Real deliberate. Like if he made everything neat enough, what he was doing would count as normal. Marissa hovered behind him, holding a little plastic cup of pills and a glass of water. Her eyes wouldn't stay on my face. They kept flicking to the paper, then to Derek, like she was waiting for her line. Derek pointed at the signature line with the pen. "Right here, Fran. This is just so we can talk to Wells Fargo and insurance. It's boring stuff." Boring, sure. I stared at the line. My name looked familiar and wrong at the same time, like it belonged to a stranger. My hand lay heavy in my lap, useless as a paperweight. Derek took my wrist, not gentle. Not rough, either. Just sure. He wrapped my fingers around the pen and started guiding my hand toward the paper like I was a puppet. Marissa said, "Mom, please. This will help." Help who? I let my hand go limp again. Not dramatic, just dead weight. The pen slipped. Ink skated across the paper in a shaky slash. Derek's smile tightened. He leaned closer, voice low. "Don't do that." Marissa stepped in with the pill cup. "You need these first. You're getting worked up." I looked at the pills. 2 were different than yesterday, 1 bigger, 1 a different color. That could have been nothing. Pharmacies switched generics. But my skin prickled anyway because everything in my house had turned into a guessing game. A house can become a trap in under a week. And nobody calls it what it is. Marissa tipped the cup, coaxing, "Come on." I couldn't swallow on command. Stroke wrecks that. 1 minute you're fine. The next minute water goes down wrong, and you're coughing like you've got a lung full of sand. I wasn't faking that part. I really did choke easy. So I shook my head. Just barely. Derek exhaled hard through his nose. He stood up straighter, like he was done playing nice. "Fine," he said. "Well, do it later." He scooped up the papers, but not before I caught the header again. Power of attorney in big black letters. My stomach turned. Then he did something that told me exactly how dangerous this was. He reached down and took my robe pocket between his fingers and gave it a quick pat, like a cop checking for a weapon. My blood went cold because the Nordstrom receipt was in there. So was that casino slip. His hand paused for half a second. Then he smiled again. "You got everything you need?" he asked, sweet as syrup. Marissa let out a nervous laugh. "She's fine." Derek's eyes stayed on mine. "Good." He didn't find it, not that time, but now I knew he was looking. Trust is a door. Once it closes, it locks. After they went to bed, I lay awake in the dark, listening to my own house settle. The fridge hummed. A car passed on the street. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked twice like it was keeping time. And my brain ran in circles. If Derek got that power of attorney, I was done. He could reroute everything: money, medical decisions, even where I lived. He could stick me in a facility, call it care, an ID never see daylight again without permission. I needed help that didn't come through Marissa. I needed Calvin. The problem was, I didn't have my phone, and I couldn't just roll out to the closet whenever I felt like it not, with Derek doing pat-downs like I was the criminal. So I waited for my smallest opening, morning. Derek always slept late. Marissa got up early to organize. She liked lists, labels, little baskets, the kind of stuff that looks responsible on Instagram. At about 7:15, she left the bedroom door open and went to the kitchen. I could hear cabinets opening, the coffee maker gurgling. Derek was still snoring. I rolled my chair down the hall slow enough that the wheels didn't squeak. I eased into the closet, pulled the door mostly closed behind me, and dug through the scarves until my fingers hit cold glass. The iPad. The screen came on dim and blue. I held it close like a secret. My email loaded again. More bank notifications, more address confirmations, more little bites taken out of my life while I sat 10 feet away. Then I saw something I hadn't noticed the night before, an email thread from Chase titled Cash Advance Confirmation. I opened it, and there it was: date, time, amount, $2,000. And the location line said River City Casino. Not ATM withdrawal, not unknown, casino cage. It felt like getting slapped with paper. I snapped a screenshot. I don't mean I did it smoothly. I fumbled, hit the wrong buttons twice, nearly dropped the thing. But I got it. A little image proof sitting in my photo roll. My first clean receipt that didn't come out of the trash. Okay, now what? I tapped into messages. My fingers trembled over the keyboard. Typing felt like trying to thread a needle during an earthquake. But Calvin's name was there. Old thread from years ago holiday texts. Dumb jokes. Him sending pictures of his new fishing rod like I cared. I cared now. I stared at the blank text field. I didn't have to write a novel. I needed one thing to happen. Him calling me. him coming here, him seeing what I couldn't explain out loud. So I typed the only word my finger could manage without messing up. Helpy. Then I hit send. The blue bubble went out. And I sat there in that closet with my heart pounding so hard, I thought Marissa would hear it through the wall. If he didn't see it, I was stuck. If he did see it, I started something I might not be able to stop. A minute passed. 2. The house stayed quiet except for coffee and snoring. Then my iPad buzzed in my hands. A reply. What's wrong? Are you safe? I swear, I almost cried right there into a pile of winter scarves. Relief and fear hit at the same time, like two waves colliding. I typed, slow and ugly, no phone, Derek taking money, P.O. box, come. My spelling was trash. Autocorrect fought me. I didn't care. Calvin replied fast. On my way. Call 911. I stared at that. Call 911. Like it was easy. Like I could reach a phone. Like Derek hadn't unplugged my landline. I typed, can't, hurry. Then I did the next risky thing. I attached the Chase screenshot and sent it. There, a receipt, a reason to believe me. The second that little image flew off my screen, my stomach dropped because I realized something I hadn't thought through. If Derek had my Apple ID on his phone, IF, that new device notification, meant what I thought it meant, then he might see my messages, or get alerts, or be able to shut it down. I shoved the iPad back under scarves, rolled out of the closet, and tried to look like I'd been exactly where Marissa last left me. She was at the kitchen counter, stirring coffee, scrolling her iPhone 14 Pro like nothing in the world was wrong. She glanced up. There you are, she said. I thought you might have wandered. Wandered, like I was a loose balloon. I kept my face blank, but my pulse was a drum in my throat. 10 minutes later, Derek walked out, rubbing his eyes, acting grumpy like he was the victim of a hard life. He opened my fridge, grabbed a bottle of orange juice, and drank straight from it. Then he froze. He stared at his Samsung Galaxy S22 on the counter like it had just insulted him. He picked it up, thumb flying. His whole posture shifted, alert, tight. Marissa asked, what? Derek didn't answer. He just walked into the living room, eyes narrowed at his screen, and then real casual looked straight at me. And I knew. He knew. His voice stayed light, but the air in the room went sharp. Did you get into the closet today, Fran? Marissa blinked. What are you talking about? Derek held up the phone. I got a notification, he said. An Apple thing. Security alert. Marissa's eyes widened. She looked at me like she was seeing a stranger. Mom? My mouth wouldn't form words, but my whole body felt like it was leaning backward. Derek took a step toward me. Don't play dumb. That's the thing about men like him. When they drop the sweet voice, they don't go halfway. They go straight to threat. He leaned down close enough that I could smell the orange juice on his breath. Where is it? He whispered. Where's the iPad? Marissa made a small sound, like a gasp swallowed back. Derek, stop. He didn't even look at her. You said she couldn't, he snapped. You said she was out. Marissa's face went white. I could see it on her, plain as day. She had been telling herself a story, that I was gone, that I wouldn't know, that she could live with it. And now I was forcing her to see me. Derek straightened up, eyes cold. Fine, he said. Well, do it the hard way. He walked past me, down the hall, and yanked the closet door open so fast it banged against the wall. He started ripping through scarves, throwing them out onto the floor like confetti. Marissa followed, whispering, please, don't. Derek found the iPad in about 10 seconds. He held it up like a trophy. And then he did the mini twist that made my stomach flip. He didn't throw it. He didn't smash it. He smiled. He carried it into the kitchen, set it on the counter, and opened. Settings like he'd done it before, like he knew exactly where to go. Marissa said, voice shaky, what are you doing? Derek said, fixing the problem. He tapped Wi-Fi and flipped it off. Then he went to my router me, router ran, unplugged it from the wall. The little lights died. No internet, no messages, no lifeline. Modern life is a cord. He just yanked mine. Then Derek turned back to me and held the iPad up inches from my face. "Who did you talk to?" he asked, calm as a banker. I stared at him. He nodded like he expected that. "Okay," he said. "Well, ask Wells Fargo to lock down your accounts. We'll tell them you've been hacked. Well, tell your doctor you're confused." Marissa whispered. "Derek." He finally looked at her. "You want to lose everything?" he snapped. "Because that's what happens if she starts running her mouth." I watched my daughter flinch like hit her with words, and I hated that I noticed it. I hated that part of me still cared about her feelings. Then Derek reached into my robe pocket. This time, he didn't miss. He pulled out the Nordstrom receipt, unfolded it, and stared at it. His eyes flicked over the total, the card number digits, the date. Then he let out this short, humorless laugh. "Wow," he said. "You went dumpster diving." Marissa's mouth fell open. "What is that?" Derek held it up to her. "Your mother's little hobby," he said, "collecting trash." Marissa snatched it, reading. Her face tightened. "Derek, this is Mom's card." Derek's voice stayed flat. "We needed it." Marissa's eyes flashed. "For what?" And there it was, another twist. Derek didn't deny it. He didn't even try. He just said, "For bills, for life, for the mess we're in." Marissa stared at him like she didn't know him, or like she did know him and didn't want to. He stepped closer to her, lowering his voice. "You want her to go back to the hospital? You want Adult Protective Services sniffing around? You want Nolan coming in here and asking questions?" The way he said Nolan's name and me son's name made my skin crawl, like Nolan was a threat, not family. Marissa swallowed. "Don't bring Nolan into this." Derek's eyes cut to me. "Oh, Hez in it now," he said, "because you made him in it." I felt my whole body go cold. He didn't know about Calvin. He was guessing, fishing. But the second he said Nolan, I realized the danger wasn't just to me anymore. Derek was willing to drag my son into this, lie about him, accuse him, whatever it took to keep control. Then Derek lifted the iPad again. "Unlock it," he said to me, like he was ordering a dog to sit. I stared back. He leaned in, voice quiet, venom under it. "If you don't, I'll make sure you sign that paperwork today, one way or another." Marissa's voice broke. "Derek, stop saying that." Derek didn't blink. "Then tell her to cooperate." Marissa looked at me, eyes wet, and I saw the war in her face, her guilt, fighting her fear. Her love, whatever was left of it, fighting the life shed built with him. She whispered, "Mom, please." And for a second, I almost gave in, not because they deserved it, because I was tired, because I was scared, because I wanted the yelling to stop. Then I remembered the ICU alarms, the empty slot in my wallet, the P.O. box. And I stayed still. Derek exhaled, sharp. He set the iPad down and walked to the pantry. He opened it, rummaged, then came back with something that made my stomach drop. My pill organizer. He shook it once, listening to the rattle like it was a maraca. "You know what?" he said, calm again. "Maybe you are not ready for all this stimulation. Maybe you need to rest." Marissa's eyes widened. "Derek, no!" He ignored her. He popped open the lid and started sliding pills into the little cup more than I'd seen before. Way more. I couldn't speak. I couldn't stop him. I could only watch my own care turn into a weapon. He held the cup out to Marissa. "Help her," he said. Marissa's hands shook. "I am not doing that." Derek's eyes hardened. "Then I will." He stepped toward me with the cup and the water glass. And in the doorway behind him, I heard something outside I hadn't heard in days. A truck engine. A deep, familiar rumble. Derek paused, head tilting like head caught it too. He walked to the front window and peeked through the blinds. His face changed. Not surprise. Recognition. He turned slowly back toward me, cup still in his hand, and his voice went dangerously soft. "Who's coming to my house, Fran?" The doorbell rang. And Derek smiled like he'd already decided what story he was going to tell. The doorbell rang again, and this time Derek didn't move toward it like a host, moved like a bouncer, shoulders squared, cup of pills still in his hand like it was normal to carry a threat around the kitchen. Marissa was frozen by the counter, eyes huge, whispering, "Calm down," to him or to herself, I couldn't tell. Derek hissed, "Stay back," and he nudged my wheelchair with his knee so I rolled a few inches away from the entry like I was a shopping cart in his way. My own front hallway, my own rug, my own photos on the wall, and I was being parked out of sight. Then he opened the door just a crack. I couldn't see the porch from where I was, but I heard Calvin's voice immediately deep, familiar, already mad. "Where is she?" Derek put on that smooth tone, the one he used on nurses. "Calvin, hey, this isn't a good time. Fran's resting." Calvin didn't buy it for 1 second. "She texted me, help. Don't tell me she's resting." Silence. A sharp, clean silence. Derek chuckled like Calvin had made a joke. "She's confused." "She's been messing with devices. It's not." Calvin cut him off. "Move." There's a sound a man makes when he's trying to keep his temper under control. It's not yelling. It's that controlled pressure in the voice, like a lid shaking on a boiling pot. Calvin had it. Derek's voice hardened. "You can't just barge in here." Calvin said, "Watch me." Then I heard another voice, Yvonne, calm, clipped, nurse voice. "We're not leaving without seeing her." Derek muttered something under his breath, and I caught one word. Problem. That's what I was to him, not a person. Love turns into logistics. That's how it dies. The door opened wider, and Calvin stepped into the house like a storm front. He looked older than I remembered, more gray at his temples, more lines around his eyes, but his stare was the same one he used to give men who tried to overcharge our mom at the auto shop. He saw me in the hallway and his whole face changed. "Fran," he said, and his voice cracked. Yvonne came in right behind him, a hand on Calvin's arm like a leash. She saw me too, then immediately looked at Derek, then at Marissa, then at the kitchen counter. She noticed everything in one sweep, the way nurses do. Derek shifted, blocking Calvin's view of the kitchen. "She's fine," he said. "We've got her handled." Calvin took one step closer to my chair, and Derek stepped into his path. Calvin didn't shove him. He didn't need to. He simply held up his phone, screen facing Derek. On it was my blue message bubble. HELP. Receipt number 1, right there in his hand. Derek's eyes flicked to it, then away. "She can't even type," he snapped. Calvin's jaw tightened. "Then who did?" Derek's gaze slid to Marissa, like he was daring her to answer wrong. Marissa's mouth opened, then closed. She looked like she wanted to melt into the floor. Yvonne walked past both of them and crouched beside my wheelchair, eyes scanning my face, my hands, my posture. "Hi, Fran," she said softly. "Squeeze my fingers if you can." I tried. It was a pathetic twitch, barely there, but it happened. Yvonne nodded, like Shed just confirmed something important. Then she stood up and turned straight to Marissa. "Where's her phone?" Marissa blinked fast. It's safe. She loses things." Yvonne's expression went flat. "Adults don't get their phones taken away because someone else is nervous." Derek laughed once, sharp. "Oh, here we go." Yvonne didn't flinch. "And why do you have a cup full of pills in your hand?" Derek's grip tightened on the cup. "Her meds." Yvonne stepped closer, and her voice dropped into that clinical calm that scares the life out of people who like control. "Let me see." Derek held it back. "No." Calvin's head snapped toward the cup. "What the hell are you doing?" Derek's eyes flashed. "Mind your business." Calvin said, "She is my business." Derek's smile showed teeth. "She's my mother-in-law." Calvin's voice went cold. "That doesn't mean you get to play doctor." My house felt like it shrank around us. Too many bodies. Too much tension. The air got thick. Then Derek did the thing abusers do when they realize they're losing the room. He switched targets. He pointed at Calvin and said, loud enough for Marissa and Yvonne to hear, "You know Nolan hates you, right?" He told Marissa, "You're always trying to take over." Calvin went still. "Don't bring my nephew into this." Derek shrugged like he was just passing along gossip. "Just saying, you show up uninvited, stirring up drama." Yvonne cut in, crisp. "Stop talking." Derek glared at her. Yvonne didn't care. She reached for the pill cup again. "Hand it over." Derek stepped back. And Calvin, bless him, finally did something physical. He grabbed Derek's wrist. Not violent, just firm, like, "We're done with this." The cup tipped. Pills clattered across my kitchen floor, bouncing under the table like little white beetles. Marissa gasped, "Oh my God." Yvonne immediately dropped to her knees and started picking them up, counting under her breath like she couldn't help it. 1, 2, 3. Derek yanked his hand free and snapped, "Great, now you've made a mess." Yvonne looked up at him from the floor. "This isn't a mess," she said. "This is evidence." Derek's face changed at that word. Evidence. People like him hate that word. It's heavier than anger, it sticks. Cold truth. If you can't speak, you collect proof. Proof talks for you. Calvin pulled his phone back out and hit the screen. "I am calling 911, he said, plain as day. Derek lifted both hands, like, whoa, no need for that, trying to regain control with body language. "Seriously? You're calling cops because she dropped her meds?" Calvin didn't blink. "Because you were trying to force them down her throat." Marissa's voice came out tiny. Derek wasn't. Yvonne stood up, pills in her palm, and held them out. "There are more here than a normal dose, and some of these do not match what she was discharged with." "Where did they come from?" Marissa stared at the pills like they'd turned into spiders. Derek took a step toward Yvonne. "Give me those." Yvonne closed her fist. No. That was another turning point. Not huge, not cinematic, just a woman saying no and meaning it. Derek's eyes flicked around the room, calculating. Then he swung his gaze to me, and his voice went sweet again. "Fran's confused," he said, like he was speaking to invisible jurors. "She's been paranoid. She thinks we're stealing from her." Calvin said, "You are." Derek scoffed. "Prove it." Calvin held up his phone again and swiped to the screenshot ID sent. The Chase email confirmation. The River City Casino cash advance. Date, amount, location. He shoved it toward Derek. "That enough?" Marissa stepped closer, reading. Her hand flew to her mouth. "Derek." Derek's eyes narrowed. "That's not." Yvonne's voice cut through him. "That is her account activity." Derek's jaw worked like he was chewing rage. Then his eyes went to Marissa, and the pressure in his voice was brutal. "Marissa, tell them." Marissa looked trapped between him and us. Her shoulders rose, then fell. I didn't know," she whispered. Derek's face tightened. "Yes, you did." Marissa flinched. Calvin's voice went low. "Don't you talk to her like that." Derek laughed, but it sounded like panic under paint. "Oh, so now you're the hero." A siren wailed faintly somewhere in the distance. Maybe not for us, but it made Derek's head turn anyway. Then he moved. Not toward the door. Toward me. He leaned down close and murmured, "You think this ends well for you?" My throat tightened. My stomach rolled. My body stayed stuck. His words were a hand around my windpipe. Then the front door swung wider, and I heard footsteps on the porch, voices outside. Sacramento Police Department. The sound of that made my whole body go hot and cold at the same time. Relief, shame, fear, all of it. 2 officers stepped inside, one man, one woman. They looked around quickly, reading the room the way Yvonne had, and their eyes landed on me immediately. The female officer crouched slightly so her face was in my line of sight. "Ma'am, are you Frances Delaney?" I blinked once, hard. She nodded like she understood that blink meant yes. "Are you in danger right now?" I tried to blink again. My eyelids were heavy, but I got it. Twice. The officer's jaw tightened. She stood up and turned to Derek. "Sir, step back." Derek put his hands up again, performing innocence. "This is ridiculous. They're upsetting her." Calvin said they tried to make her sign paperwork, they took her phone, they've been spending her money. Derek snapped, "Hez lying." Yvonne lifted her fist slightly and opened it, showing the pills in her palm, and he was about to over-medicate her. That changed the whole tone. The male officer's eyes sharpened. What medication? Yvonne named what she recognized, and she also said, "Some of these are not consistent with a standard discharge pack. I want EMS here." Derek looked straight at Marissa and said, almost under his breath, "Fix this." Marissa started crying, ugly crying. The kind that makes your whole face collapse. I didn't. The female officer held up a hand to pause her. "Ma'am, well, speak with you separately." Derek's head snapped. "No, you won't." The male officer's voice went flat. "Yes, we will." For the first time since Head moved into my house, Derek didn't look like the boss. He looked like a guy realizing Head pushed too far. Still, he tried one more angle. He pointed at Calvin and said, "He showed up uninvited. He's trying to take her money. Ask Nolan." The female officer cut him off so fast it made me want to cheer. "Stop talking." Derek's mouth closed. The officers split us up in different rooms. Calvin in the living room, Derek in the kitchen, Marissa in the dining area sobbing. Yvonne stayed with me, hand on my shoulder, steady. EMS arrived and checked my vitals, asked about medication. They asked me to respond if I could. I blinked. I twitched. I did what I could. Then Yvonne asked the paramedic something that felt like pure gold. "Can you document her level of sedation right now?" Document. Another brick in the wall. They recommended taking me in for evaluation, not because I was dying, but because something wasn't right and it needed to be on record. Derek protested, of course. "She hates hospitals." Calvin said, "She hates you." They rolled me out past my own front door, and for a second, I saw Calvin's 2019 Ford F-150 parked at the curb like a lifeboat. On the gurney, I stared up at the sky and tried not to shake apart. Freedom can feel like grief, because you realize what you survived. At the hospital, everything moved fast. A doctor asked questions I couldn't answer. Yvonne answered what she could as a nurse and family. Calvin filled in the rest, showing the screenshot, explaining the P.O. box, the missing phone, the papers. Then Dr. Rosen walked in. Same calm eyes, same clipped voice. She looked at me, and her face softened just a fraction. "Miss Delaney," she said quietly, "I remember you." I wanted to cry. I wanted to tell her thank you for believing something was wrong back then. All I could do was blink. She turned to Calvin. "I filed that incident report, and I requested security review." Calvin leaned in. "Did you get it?" Dr. Rosen hesitated. "The footage exists, but there's a retention window. It won't be kept forever unless law enforcement requests it formally." My heart hammered. Calvin said, "How long?" Dr. Rosen looked at her watch like she hated the answer. "We're close. Close to losing it." Another mini twist. It wasn't saved. Not yet. It could still vanish. Calvin pulled out his phone and, right there in the ER hallway, asked the nurse at the desk for the number to Sacramento's elder abuse unit. He didn't ask permission. He didn't debate. He moved. While he was on the call, Yvonne helped me use a hospital tablet to pull up my email. She didn't let go of the device. She positioned it so my eyes could see. There was the Wells Fargo confirmation, again address changed to a P.O. box. Yvonne took a photo of the screen with her own phone. "Receipt," she murmured, like she was building a file. Then she scrolled. And the number on my Wells Fargo savings account made my stomach drop so hard I almost gagged. It wasn't just some money. It was a collapse. ID had about $85,000 sitting there before my stroke. Retirement buffer, emergency cushion, my safety net. Now it showed around $17,000. I stared at it until my eyes burned. Calvin came back, face tight, and said, "Detective Luis Ortega is calling me back." That name landed like a weight. Real, official, not family drama anymore. Detective Ortega called within minutes. Calvin put it on speaker so Yvonne could hear too. A calm voice asked, "Is Frances Delaney safe right now?" Yvonne answered, "She's in the hospital. Possible over-medication attempt. Financial exploitation." Detective Ortega paused. "Okay, I need copies of whatever you have. Screenshots, receipts, bank notifications. And I need the incident number from ICU." Dr. Rosen handed it over without hesitation. She wrote it on a sticky note and pressed it into Calvin's palm like she'd been waiting for this moment. Then Detective Ortega said the sentence that changed everything. "I can request and preserve the footage tonight," he said. "But once it's secured, this becomes a criminal case." Criminal. My daughter, my son-in-law, criminal. Marissa wasn't in the hospital with us. The officers had kept her back to take a statement. I didn't know what she said. I didn't know what Derek said. All I knew was my life had finally moved into hands that weren't trying to squeeze it dry. Anyway, we thought the worst part was Derek losing control. We were wrong. Because just after midnight, when the ER was quiet and the fluorescent lights made everyone look pale and exhausted, a nurse came to my curtain and said, "Ms. Delaney, there's someone here who says has your legal agent." My stomach turned over. Through the gap in the curtain, I saw Derek's silhouette too tall, too still holding a folder like a weapon. And on top of that folder was a document with my name and a bold, clean line where a signature should be. The nurse didn't even finish the sentence before Calvin was already on his feet, stepping between my curtain and the hallway like his body was the only door Derek was getting tonight. I could see Derek through the gap too calm, too composed, holding that folder like he'd practiced this in the mirror. He gave the nurse a polite little nod, like they were old coworkers. Then he looked past her, straight at me, and smiled. It wasn't warmth, it was ownership. "Hi, Fran," he said, voice soft. "I am here to take care of some paperwork." Calvin said, "You need to leave." Derek didn't even acknowledge him at first. He lifted the top page so the nurse could see it and said, "I am her legal agent. Power of attorney. She needs to be discharged to my care." Yvonne moved to the other side of my bed, and her tone went clinical. "She is not consented to that." Derek tilted his head like she was being difficult. "It's already done," he said, tapping the signature line. The nurse glanced down, unsure, and that little moment of uncertainty made my stomach cramp. Because people like Derek live in that moment, they sprint through it. But the nurse did something. I'll always respect. She didn't decide. She stepped back and said, "Let me get charge." Derek's smile twitched. He didn't like delays. Calvin leaned closer to Derek, low enough that only we could hear. "You're done," he said. Derek's eyes slid to Calvin, and his voice stayed polite. "You're emotional. I get it." Calvin's jaw tightened. "You tried to drug her." Derek's gaze flicked to me again, like he was checking what I could do about that accusation. "You don't know what you saw," he said. "She refuses meds. She's combative." We were trying to calm her down. I wanted to laugh. Combative. Me, in a hospital bed. A lie only needs confidence. He had plenty. A charge nurse appeared with a hospital security guard and a woman in a blazer I recognized as the kind who lives in paperwork risk management, patient relations, something like that. The blazer woman asked for the document, and Derek handed it over like he was passing a menu. She scanned it, then looked at me. "Miss Delaney, do you want Mr. Cruz to be your agent?" I blinked hard, once, then again, twice. "No." The blazer woman nodded like she understood. "Okay," she said, "then we can't accept this as consent." Derek's smile finally cracked. "It's not optional. She already signed it." Yvonne's voice sliced in. "She has significant motor impairment. When exactly did she sign it?" Derek didn't hesitate. "Before the stroke. We had it ready." Calvin said, "So you carried around a power of attorney for her before she got sick?" Derek's eyes flashed. "Lots of families plan ahead." Yvonne looked at the signature line, then the notary stamp. Her eyebrows lifted. This was notarized last week. Derek blinked once. That was the first real slip, a tiny one. But it was there. The blazer woman's eyes narrowed. "Sir," she said, "if she didn't sign this willingly, this is a problem." Derek's voice got sharper. "This is my wife's mother. I am trying to protect her." Calvin stepped closer. "By changing her Wells Fargo address to a P.O. box?" Derek snapped his head around. "What?" Mini twist. He hadn't expected that detail to be in the room. His face didn't go guilty, it went calculating, like he was searching for which lie to use. Calvin pulled out his phone and showed the photo Yvonne had taken of my email confirmation address, updated, secondary contact, all of it. A clean receipt, date and time included. The blazer woman looked from the screen to Derek and went very still. "Security," she said quietly. "Please ask Mr. Cruz to step away from the patient area." Derek laughed, loud and brittle. "Are you kidding me because of an email?" The security guard didn't argue. "Sir." Derek leaned forward, trying to keep the folder in the conversation. "You can't do this. I am her legal agent." The blazer woman handed the paper back like it was contaminated. "Not here, you're not," she said. Derek's eyes went to me again, and the softness dropped out completely. "Fran," he said, voice low, "don't do this." My skin prickled. Even in a hospital, even with staff around, that tone made the room feel smaller. Yvonne leaned in close to my ear. "Blink if you want him gone," she whispered. I blinked like my life depended on it. Because it did. The security guard stepped forward, and Derek took half a step back, still trying to act reasonable. "Fine," he said, "but you're making a mistake." Calvin's voice was flat. "Get out." Derek turned to leave, and right before he passed the curtain, he said something quiet enough that the nurse wouldn't catch it. "You just chose war." Then he was gone. When the hallway finally emptied, the adrenaline drained out of me so fast, I felt nauseous. My chest felt tight. My hands trembled in a way I couldn't control. Yvonne sat on the edge of the chair beside my bed and took my wrist like she was checking a pulse, but really, she was grounding me. "You did good," she murmured. I didn't feel good. I felt exposed, like I finally stepped into the light, and now anything could reach me. A social worker came in and asked Calvin and Yvonne a million questions: who had access to my home, who controlled my accounts, whether there were weapons, whether there had been threats. Calvin answered, and Yvonne filled in with details, calm and precise. Then the social worker said, "We can place a visitor restriction immediately. We can also contact Adult Protective Services." Calvin said, "Do it." And that was the next shift in power. My life stopped being family drama and started being documented systems. Paperwork can be a shield when you're the one holding it. About an hour later, Howard Feldman showed up. He looked like every elder law attorney you've ever seen. Nice suit, calm eyes, the kind of guy who doesn't raise his voice because he doesn't have to. Calvin must have called him from the parking lot earlier. Howard introduced himself to me gently, then asked yes, no questions I could answer with blinks. "Do you want Calvin to have authority to help you manage finances and medical decisions?" Blinked twice. "Yes." He nodded. "Okay," he said. "We're going to do a temporary conservatorship petition in the morning. We're also going to revoke anything Derek claims exists." Calvin let out a shaky breath like he'd been holding it for days. Howard flipped open a thin folder and slid a document toward the nurse. "I also want copies of her chart notes regarding motor impairment and communication status," he said, "especially anything about her inability to sign." Receipt number 2. Medical records, not feelings. The next mini twist came with Detective Luis Ortega. He arrived around 3 a.m. looking exhausted but sharp, like a man who'd seen too many families eat each other. He asked to speak with Calvin and Yvonne first, then he came to my bedside. "Ms. Delaney," he said, steady and respectful, "I am Detective Ortega. I am investigating a report of financial exploitation and possible dependent adult abuse. I am going to ask you questions you can answer yes or no." I blinked. He asked if Derek controlled my phone. Yes. If money was taken without permission, yes. If I was afraid of him, yes. Then he said, we requested the ICU hallway footage. The hospital preserved it. My heart hammered. He didn't say what it showed yet. He just watched my face and said, I want you to know something. You were right to be scared. Cold truth. Being believed is its own kind of medicine. It doesn't heal you, it just stops the bleeding. Detective Ortega asked Calvin to send him the screenshots Chase Casino advance, Wells Fargo address change, account balance drop. Calvin emailed them right there from his phone, hands shaking but determined. Ortega nodded. Good, he said. That's enough for me to move. Then he asked, do you have any proof of the attempted over-medication? Yvonne opened her fist and showed the pills Shed bagged in a clean glove earlier, now sealed in a little plastic specimen bag the nurse had provided. We counted them, she said, and they didn't match her discharge list. Ortega's expression hardened. Okay, he said, that matters. He stepped into the hall to make calls, and Howard leaned in close to Calvin and said, if he's bold enough to come here with a forged document, he'll try to drain what's left of her accounts next, first thing in the morning. Calvin swallowed. Can we stop it tonight? Howard nodded. We can place holds. We can notify Wells Fargo fraud. But we have to move fast. So yeah, while I lay there in a hospital bed, my brother and a lawyer went to war with a bank at 4 in the morning. Calvin called Wells Fargo's fraud line. He gave the case number Detective Ortega provided. He gave my identifying info. He asked for an immediate freeze pending investigation. He didn't argue. He didn't ramble. He said one sentence over and over until the person on the other end understood he wasn't going away. An officer is involved. My sister is a dependent adult. Freeze the accounts. I could hear the rep's tone shift through the phone speaker from polite to careful. That shift is everything. By sunrise, my Wells Fargo accounts were flagged and temporarily restricted. My Chase card was frozen. New checks would not be issued. Address changes required in-person verification. Paper shields, one by one. Then the biggest receipt landed. Detective Ortega came back mid-morning with a tablet. He didn't show it to me right away. He showed it to Calvin and Yvonne first, then he looked at me. Ms. Delaney, he said, I am going to describe what we have, and you blink if I am correct. He said, in the ICU hallway footage, we see Mr. Cruz enter the room with your daughter. We see them remain inside during the respiratory alarm. We see staff rush in. We see Mr. Cruz leave immediately afterward. I blinked. Then he said, we also have a nurse's statement describing a hand on your ventilator line. Keisha, my chest tightened. Ortega nodded. Based on that and the financials, we're moving forward. Calvin's eyes were wet. Yvonne's mouth was a straight line. And me? I felt something ugly and satisfying rise in my chest. Not joy, not relief, just this cold certainty. He wasn't going to talk his way out of it. That afternoon, Ortega called Calvin with an update. Derek had shown up at a Wells Fargo branch trying to do something. He claimed he needed access for Fran, had the notary paper, the whole act. The teller flagged it because the account was restricted and because the name didn't match authorized contacts. Ortega was already nearby. Mini twist. Derek didn't get arrested at my house. He got arrested under fluorescent lights in a bank lobby, still holding his folder like it could protect him. Calvin didn't tell me the exact words Derek said when they cuffed him. He didn't need to. I could imagine it. Outrage, victimhood, blame. Blame is Derek's native language. Truth is his allergy. Marissa came to the hospital the next day, escorted by an officer because of the visitor restrictions. She looked smaller than I remembered. No makeup. Hair pulled back like Shed given up. She stood at the foot of my bed and cried until her face turned blotchy. I didn't know it would go this far, she whispered. That sentence made something in me ache and harden at the same time. Because part of me wanted to pull her close and say, baby, I know you were scared. And part of me wanted to ask, how many times did you watch me struggle for air and still choose him? I couldn't say either. I just stared. Detective Ortega spoke with her in the hall. When she came back in, her eyes were red, but her voice was steadier. I told them everything, she said, about the P.O. box, about the card, about the paperwork. She swallowed. He made me. I blinked once, slow. Not yes, not no, just I heard you. The court stuff took months. Temporary conservatorship, a restraining order, bank recovery, paper after paper after paper. Howard handled the legal side like it was a chessboard. Calvin and Yvonne handled the practical side like it was a job. Nolan flew in the minute he heard. When he walked into my hospital room, he didn't say a word at first. He just pressed his forehead to my hand and cried. The kind of crying grown men do when they've been trying to be strong for too long. Derek's charges were serious: financial exploitation, dependent adult abuse. And once the ICU footage and staff statements were preserved, the case stopped being misunderstanding and started being pattern. Marissa faced consequences too. Not the way Derek did, but enough that she finally had to look at herself without his shadow covering everything. She started therapy, court-ordered stuff. She moved out. She lost the fantasy that love excuses harm. And me? I got my phone back, eventually me cracked iPhone 11, like an old friend with a scarred face. I held it in my hand and cried like it was a newborn. Because a phone isn't a phone when you've been trapped. It's a door. I moved in with Calvin and Yvonne for a while. Their house wasn't mine, but it was safe. Safety feels boring when you've lived in chaos. I learned to love boring again. Sometimes I still wake up hearing that ICU alarm in my head. Sometimes I still smell Derek's cologne and my stomach flips even though Hez nowhere near me. But I also have this quiet, steady satisfaction that surprised me. He brought paper into the hospital like it was a weapon, and the truth shredded it. If you love karma served cold, stick around, because the next story won't be gentle either.